Good afternoon. Now we will be discussing the final examination paper, and the duration, as you know, it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. The instructions are clearly written. The question has 3 parts, part A, B and C, and the answers to be written in the booklet. And the question paper consists of 4 pages, and the questions are printed on both sides of the paper, excluding this page. Then instructions are: part A contains 5 questions and answer all. We refer to the questions now. The first part, first one is define the meaning of morpheme and give 2 examples of words with 2 morphemes. Page 35 in your general linguistics module will give you the answer to that. We talk about define the meaning of morpheme. It says a morpheme is a minimum unit of meaning, and it says the word cannot be broken down to any smaller units of meaning. And we have to give 2 examples of word with 2 morphemes. First of all, you have to identify what a morpheme is, and then 2 examples of words with 2 morphemes. For example, if you say happy, that is 1 morpheme. But if you say unhappy or uncover, that's 2 morphemes. Then the second question is describe how the following sounds are produced and provide an example for each. Page 21 has the answer for that. Palatal. What is a palatal? It means positioning of the hard palate and the tongue, and they have asked for an example. It's there in your book itself. Yet is one example. And then for vela, it is the positioning of the velum and the tongue. And an example, you can get cat or get. And then there's this other question of briefly explain the concept of ambiguity in sentence structure by giving examples. Briefly explain the concept of ambiguity in sentence structure by giving an example. Page 53. Ambiguity, we talk of structural ambiguity. It says another form of ambiguity is structural ambiguity, where the interpretations available depend on the relations of constituents with other words in the sentence. And an example that is already given in the book is what we have already discussed. The little girl bought the beautiful dress, in the shop. Right? So that means she went to the shop and bought the dress. The same sentence, if we say, the little girl bought the beautiful dress in the shop. That means she bought the dress that was in the shop through the internet. So you can see the ambiguity of this sentence. Explain the concept of ambiguity. And next question is, according to Sapir-Whorf's linguistic determinism, we are imprisoned by our culture. What do they mean by this concept? And I think you would have realized, or you would have studied the Sapir-Whorf concept or this hypothesis when you were doing your assignment. And if you want to just describe it, you can say what you mean by the linguistic determinism, and we are imprisoned by our culture, means individuals experience the world based on the structure of the language they habitually use. Right? The individuals experience the world based on the structure of the language they habitually use. So that can be, that is what Safir and Wolf talked when they were talking about linguistic determinism. And we talk of explain 4 principles proposed by Golink et al. As strategies for determining the meaning of words, and which 2 principles can help children learn the meaning of new words better, and why do you say so? Give an example to illustrate your reasons. So you talk of language acquisition. You can get that from page 115. 114. You can get the answer for that. And the next question: human language is an elaborate science system that is far more superior and privileged than other science systems. And there we say, first one, identify and describe any 3 unique properties of human language and illustrate with suitable examples. If you talk of, that is there in page 10. Also you can refer to, when you talk of even in the animal language acquisition, you talk of human language and animal communication, there also you get some information on it. And here the 3 unique properties of human language could be displacement, productivity, and culture. And part B says, compare the significance of speech and writing in human communication. Support your discussion with relevant examples. Page 4 talks about the significance of speech and writing in human communication. You can say speech does not need to be taught, and writing requires effortful learning. So there, and what is the importance of speech and writing as well. So it says many languages of the world are spoken languages without a writing system. So therefore you will need to remember the difference between language and literacy. When we talk about language, we usually refer to speaking and comprehension. It would be rare that we refer to reading and writing, as these are literacy skills which require effortful learning. And then we talk of similarities observed from experience of learning a foreign language. You have descriptive grammar and prescriptive grammar. So read through that, you can get the answer. And the third question, new words can be formed in a language by several methods. List 5 methods and describe each of them. If you talk of derivational and inflectional affixes and clitics, you can get the answer for them. You have derivational formations, how morphemes are formed, using un, dis, using adjectives like unhappy, unreal, then disappear, dislocate. Then you have a verb, and you say undo, untie. Again, you have adjectives and ness plus noun. You get happiness, creativeness. Verb able, adjective ly, noun with l, adjective magical, personal. All that is there. And on page 38, you get on inflectional affixes and clitics. inflectional affixes are bound counterparts of the function word. Most function words are free morphemes, and there you get inflectional morpheme plural, and bound morphemes you get a new word like pen, pens. Then for third person agreement, write, writes. Past tense at the ed, picked, picked. Present participle, drive, driving. Comparatives, big, bigger. Possessives, adding the possessive s, John, apostrophe s, Johns. Child, apostrophe s, childs. The new words form in a language by several methods. B is in English language, we have free morphemes and bound morphemes. What are free morphemes and bound morphemes? Define them with examples. Page 34. Again, what are free and bound morphemes? So, free morphemes can stand alone, and on 35 we talk of bound morphemes which cannot stand alone. So, we have happy, and if it is bound, unhappy. Do, redo, it's bound morphemes. Uncover, cover. So on page 34 and 35 you can find the answers for that. Then part C contains 2 questions. Answer 1. We have this saying here: society cannot share a common communication system so long as it is split into warring factions. That is something by Bertolt Brecht. And what we have to do here is briefly explain the 4 maxims in Grice's cooperative principle. You have to relate it to what Bertolt Brecht says. He says that society cannot share a common communication system so long as it is split into warring factions. So that means society should be united if they want to share a common communication system. So that is what it means. You have to connect it and explain it through the 4 maxims of Grice's cooperative principle. If you turn to page 79, you get Grice's maximum, which we say when what is usually expected from exchanges in a conversation is governed by cooperative principles, and those are also known as Grice's maxims. What are the maxims he's talking about? Those are maximum of quality, and then maximum of quality, maximum of relevance, maximum of quantity, and maximum of manner. On page 79, what you have, it's just not mentioning those 4, but you have to connect it. How true is the statement above in relation to Grice's cooperative principle? Discuss with support of relevant examples and details. So what you have to say is there won't be any, if the society is not connected and they don't have a cooperative communication system, that they will not be able to be united. And this cooperative system is created through maximum of quantity. We'll see what it means. It means it dictates that we should provide just enough information, not too much and not too little. So it looks at the following examples, following exchanges flouts both. The first example gives too little information, while the second one gives too much. How you can connect this is, if you say in a society, maybe among friends or whatever, if you talk too little or say too many things, too much, then there can be friction, or you can create problems. By telling too little, that means there won't be any communication, people can misunderstand you. By saying too much, again, it can create problems within the society among other people. Maybe it's something will be like gossip or spreading some bad news or bad information about somebody else. So maximum of quantity is important to have social harmony, not saying too little or not saying too much, and you can give examples for that. Next one is maximum of quality. How can it support social harmony? The maximum of quality dictates that we should not lie or make unsupported claims. This means we should only say what we believe to be truth or have evidence to back up its truth. This maxim is flouted if you do not know but pretend to know. Again, how to mix about in society, how to keep harmony through this maxim, that is, you should not be giving any false information. You should only talk what you think is true, not if you know that it is true, and that only if you have proper evidence that you should say something. If you spread false news, false evidence, there can be problems in society, which will be not good for the unity of a society. And then you get the maxim of relevance, which says, this maxim dictates that you say only what is relevant to the topic of the conversation. Flouting this maxim makes the response infectious, as discussed in the previous section. Again, only talk. Don't talk out of turn. Don't say what is not relevant to a conversation. Again, it will be problematic to retain the harmony in your society. It can be the family, school, among friends. So you can give those examples. And next one is maxim of manner. This maxim dictates that we should be coherent in our contribution. We should try to be brief, orderly, and unambiguous in our speech. It is very clear what it will be if we are not. If we are not coherent, that means if the other person cannot understand. Coherence is understanding. If another person cannot understand what we are saying, or we are just, and if we are not brief, if we just go on and on, it's going to create problems among your associates. And also it has to be orderly. What you say has to be organized, and it should not be ambiguous. There should not be two meanings to what you are going to say. You have to be very clear in what you are saying. Again, you can give examples from your daily life, how this can be created. And so the question is, discuss with support of relevant examples and details. Again, it's a long question with 20 marks. So the proper organization, introduction, then mentioning in the introduction itself, you have to mention what Graecer's maxims are, Graecer's cooperative principles are, and what you mean by society, Bertolt Brecht's saying, mention that, and say what he means. It can be, you have to explain whether it is a government or the country or your village, or whether it's talking about your immediate society. So you can mention, and it can be the people that you associate with. It can be among your group of close associates or in the village committee or like that. And then mention these 4 facts. And next, after that, in each paragraph, take each of these maxims and describe them and show how, if you do not abide by these maxims, how there can be disunity, disharmony in the society that you are mentioning, and give some relevant examples. So for each maxim, you say what you are talking about and give a proper example, and then have the coherence and cohesion between the paragraphs. And finally, in the last one, conclusion, you sum up saying how these 4 maxims will help to kind of have what Bertolt Brecht has mentioned. So connect that as well at the end. Then the next question. Broca's aphasias and Wernicke's aphasias are two basic groups of language disorders widely researched in the study of language and the brain. Turn to page 107. We are discussing topic 7, psycholinguistics, talking of the language and the brain. Two basic groups of language disorders, and distinguish Broca's aphasia from Wernicke's aphasia. Just refer to 7.3.2. we're talking of lateralization. Then we talk of the brain functions come from the discovery of two specific language centers, Broca's area and Wernicke's area, and they are situated in the left area of the left hemisphere of the brain. And what is the problem here? We talk of Broca's aphasia and Wernicke's aphasia. So first we distinguish or explain what Broca's aphasia is. Where is where is it situated in the brain, and what are its functions, and what happens when the Broca's area is not functioning properly. Here we say Broca's area is in the left hemisphere of the brain, and this center is responsible for speech production. And if something is wrong with that part of the brain, the language production is hampered. What happens there? Damage to Broca's area will result in Broca's aphasia. That is what we have to say. And it is a form of language impairment that is associated with difficulty of producing fluent speech. Then, first of all, the first part of it is you describe where it is situated and then distinguish between these two. What is Broca's aphasia? When the Broca's area is affected. What is Wernicke's aphasia? That is when the Wernicke's area is affected. And then come to the next part of your question where you say, what is your understanding of language and the brain derived from the reading of the language disorders described in the first part of the questions? There, what you are asked to do is, what happens, or what is there, what are the symptoms of a person who has Broca's aphasia, and what are the symptoms of a person who has Wernicke's aphasia. It says here, for Broca's aphasia, it is difficulty of producing fluent speech, and it is mainly the person who has lost the functions of that part uses the ability to use lexical items, and it is also called agrammatic aphasia because the grammar is lost, and these patients cannot talk grammatically because they have lost the words, or they don't have the vocabulary, they have lost the vocabulary use. And then the next one is in the Wernicke's area, that is responsible for speech comprehension. If that area is damaged, the people with that sickness, that means Wernicke's aphasia, they have not lost the lexical ability, but what they have lost is the comprehension. They cannot understand what another person says, although they are very fluent. They will be talking, they will be going on talking with fluently, but they cannot understand what the other person is saying, and the person listening cannot understand what this patient is saying, although fluency is there. Grammar is there, but his comprehension ability is lost. And you should watch, so then they have said there is a link in activity 7.5. Please watch that and then you get a better idea of how to answer this question. So that is the end of the question paper. Thank you.